I refused to try carnivore for 2 whole years. I had every excuse in the book. Those excuses actually kept me stuck in my pain. But desperation finally pushed me to give it a try. Within weeks, pain that I had carried for years was gone. So today, as I pack for a 36-hour road trip, I want to show you why the very thing I thought was impossible turned out to be the simplest, most freeing way I've ever eaten. We'll go through the questions first, and then you can help me pack for our trip. The truth is, what finally made me do it wasn't curiosity, it wasn't bravery. As I mentioned, it was desperation. You see, for 2 years, my arthritis was limiting me and restricting what I could do. Even simple things on our homestead, like milking the goats, became painful. I was tired of aching all the time. I was tired of lying awake at night, unable to sleep because the pain was so bad. So in spite of all the excuses I told myself, I finally tried carnivore. Within weeks, the pain was gone, and that's when I realized every excuse I believed was nothing compared to the freedom I just gained. So let's break down the biggest excuses people make to not start the carnivore diet and why they don't hold up. People say carnivore just isn't reasonable. But here's the truth. When I first thought about carnivore, that's what I told myself. I pictured myself cooking steaks 3 times a day or eating scrambled eggs with every meal. But here's what actually is happening. For our trip, I'm packing leftovers from last night's rabbit dinner and some hard-boiled eggs I already had in the fridge. That's as easy as you can get it. Simple, fast, and no stress. Every time I cook, I just make a little extra. That way, if I'm in a pinch or I get hungry at a strange time, I've already got a grab-and-go, carnivore-friendly snack waiting for me. Sometimes I'll even eat a cold piece of chuck roast with a little Redmond's real salt on it, and it doesn't get any better than that. Now I will say, at first, it does feel like more work. It's something new you have to learn as you think ahead and plan differently than you're used to. But once you've done it a while, it becomes second nature. You learn what foods work for you, what's quick to make, and what always to have on hand. And one of the biggest surprises, you're not hungry all the time anymore. I find myself eating only twice a day. Sometimes I'll even only eat once, and that's plenty. That is as easy as it gets. When you hit situations like church potlucks or parties, I'll usually bring something I know I can eat, like a charcuterie board, maybe some deviled eggs, or even chicken wings. It doesn't have to be time-consuming if you plan ahead. Reasonable doesn't mean normal. It means sustainable, simple, and doable in real life. Carnivore is the easiest way I've ever eaten. Another question I always get, isn't it boring eating the same thing all the time? People assume carnivore is one giant mound of scrambled eggs and bacon on your plate every day, but it doesn't have to look like that. I love mixing things up. I'll cook up some ground beef and put in some scrambled eggs and put cheese on top, almost like a casserole. I love butter bites. They're these little frozen bites of butter that taste rich, salty, and are so satisfying. And I even make carnivore ice cream. I didn't know that was an option at first, but it's such a fun treat when I want something different. So while carnivore might look restrictive if you're coming straight from the standard American diet, the longer you do it, the more creative and freeing it feels. And as a little side note, I want to show you something. Since this trip is kind of like a mini vacation, I'm also bringing strawberries. These are my cheat. If I'm going to cheat, I'd much rather do it with something like strawberries rather than with pastries or pizza. So just keep in mind, if you're going to go off track, try to pick something from the ketogenic diet and don't overdo it, because at least you're still in the realm of healthy. That's the beauty of this way of eating. If you step outside, keep it close to what's already working. Maybe berries, maybe a handful of almonds, or a recipe that calls for extra cheese. Sometimes in the summer, I'll slice up fresh tomatoes with a little bit of Redmond's real salt on it. So good. So as you can see, it's not about perfection, it's about consistency. And by the way, if you're new here, welcome. I'm Nancy, and I help women over 50 regain their health and vitality to live the life they want to live. If you're curious how to get started with the carnivore diet without feeling restricted or confused because there's so much information out there, I put together a free 7-day carnivore starter kit. It gives you simple meals, a shopping list, and the confidence to start strong. The link is below. Grab it after this video. Now let's talk about another objection. Is it sustainable? Can you really do this long term, like for years? When I first saw carnivore, I thought, there's no way I can live like this long term. Yeah, that was 4 years ago. But that was the excuse that kept me stuck the longest. Here's what I realized. It doesn't have to be forever. Right now, carnivore is the tool that I need to figure out what's going on in my body and let it heal from decades of food abuse. When I think about sustainability, it's not about variety or convenience at that point. It's about my why. When you can picture your life without pain, when you can see yourself moving freely, sleeping deeply, and waking up with energy, suddenly the question of sustainability doesn't even matter anymore. Because once you taste that kind of freedom, you don't want to go back to your old way of eating. This isn't about doing carnivore forever. It's about giving my body what it needs right now so it can heal. And that makes it more sustainable than any diet I've ever tried before. So if sustainability isn't a problem, what about the money side of it all? Is carnivore really too expensive? I'll tell you, only if you do it wrong. I used to think carnivore would break the bank, but here's the reality. Ground beef is about $4 a pound, and I eat 1 pound to 1.5 pounds a day. That's 1 whole day's worth of food. Eating that 1 pound to 1.5 pounds keeps me full and satisfied. Chuck roast runs $5 to $6 a pound, and I buy a whole huge slab of meat from my local butcher, and I cut it into steaks myself. That lasts me for weeks. Chicken is $2 to $3 a pound. And eggs? We raise here on the farm, but even at the store, they're one of the cheapest proteins you can get. While I do enjoy our raw goat milk from our farm, I treat dairy as a condiment, not a main course. And I would encourage you to do the same if you're a woman over 50. The truth is, carnivore only gets expensive if you think you have to eat ribeye every day. You can use ground beef, the chicken, the eggs, and that makes it one of the most affordable ways to eat. Compare that to the standard American diet: fast food, coffee runs, snacks, and eating out. That adds up super fast. But for me, carnivore has actually been simpler, cheaper, and way more satisfying. This brings me to the last point. What does carnivore look like on the road? Let me show you our actual plan for this 36-hour trip I mentioned earlier. Before we head out in the morning, I'll make us a big hearty breakfast of bacon and eggs. I'm talking 5 or 6 eggs with 3 or 4 slices of bacon. And that will carry us straight through our morning well into the afternoon. Then we'll head off to the zoo, and I'll bring a few simple snacks in the cooler, some for the kids. For us, I'll have the hard-boiled eggs, that leftover rabbit, and maybe a little cheese if we absolutely need it. After the zoo, we'll head back to the Airbnb for dinner. And I am actually going to pack hot dogs. We don't eat much processed meat, but for trips like this, they're perfect. The Airbnb has a fire pit, and I thought it would be a whole lot of fun to have a weenie roast with the kids. And then I'm also bringing some hamburger patties, and we can throw those on the stovetop. And the hot dogs and the hamburgers will make a perfect meal for me. Oh, and I mustn't forget the electrolytes. It's going to be a hot day in Memphis, and anytime our bodies are stressed, they need extra minerals to help cope. I'll be bringing a few extra of my homemade electrolytes. And if you want to know how to make your own, I have a video linked below that walks you through it. The next morning, it could be some leftover hamburgers, or we have our farm fresh eggs and some bacon that I'm taking with us. Simple, satisfying, and zero stress. And also for drinks, what we really like to drink, and this is a treat too, is lime flavored sparkling mineral water. My absolute favorite. Because we only eat once or twice a day, planning a 36-hour trip like this is super easy. We don't have to lug around bags of snacks, and we don't have to waste money eating out. So let's bring it full circle. I had all the same excuses that you might have. Carnivore cleared up my arthritis pain and so many other things. But more importantly, it gave me my freedom back. If that's something you're ready to get back in your life and you're ready to start carnivore, don't forget to grab my free 7-day carnivore starter kit below. Thanks for being here with me, and I'll see you next time.